Okay, here we go. The third of Shvat, Yom Yom. Torah Or, the magnus opus of the Alter Rebbe, was first printed in 1837 in Kopust, without any hasafas. There were a lot of hasafas, additions, a lot of interesting notes in the back, including the Myra Makoimois, all the sources of everything, all the quotes that the Rebbe has, that the Alter Rebbe brings, etc., etc. But initially it was printed without those. And the Samat Seder, in his letter of today, 3 Shvat of that year, wrote the following. The book Torah Or, now printed, contains memorim, most of them from 1796 until the end of 1812. Our master, it's the Alter Rebbe, of blessed memory, carefully examined and edited many of these and agreed to have them published. The book is comprised of 2 parts. We have today 2 volumes, Torah Or and Likutei Torah, but it was meant to be, it's one work called Torah Or. And we'll see for historical reasons why it came out in 2 volumes. It's comprised of 2 parts. The verse is on 2 of the first is on 2 of the 5 books of the Chumash, and Chanukah and Purim, with several discourses on Shavuos, in Parshas Yisro, and a few for Parshas Pesach, included in Parshas V'Yakel. The second part, which we call Likutei Torah, right? The second volume is called Likutei Torah today, was on the last 3 Chamoshim and Shir HaShirim, the Yomim Tovim, Rosh Hashanah, and Yom Kippur. And the name of the author, he says, is fitting, Shneir Zalman. Shneir can be broken up into Shnei Or, 2 lights. So he says 2 lights, just as V'ahavta is Hashem Elokecha, V'ahavta is gematria, twice the word of light. So Shneir is 2 lights. Often it's expressed that these 2 lights are the light of Nigla and the light of Nister. The Alter Rebbe was a beacon of light in both the revealed Torah and the hidden Torah. Before the second part could be printed, however, informers had the government close a number of Hebrew print shops in Russia, including the one in Kopust, where the Torah Or was printed. So in 1848, that's 11 years later, the second part was printed in Stomer with a different title, and that title is called Likutei Torah, and these are the 2 volumes that we have, Torah Or and Likutei Torah, which are really one work, just circumstantially divided in 2. All right. We are lessons in Tanya, 3 Shvat, page 262. And Tanya, page 48, the middle of the page. So we're speaking about the Ava Misuteres, the hidden love.
Sorry, didn't hear the page number in the Tanya, please.
48. 48. Bazak Klal Gadol, in the middle of the page. The first line, if you're following there, begins with Shebenefesh, Sheba, or Ein Sof. So we'll read that line. The Chochma, the aspect of Chochma of the soul, is in which place dwells the Or Ein Sof. So in my language, I've used this many times, Chochma is the window to the ayin, a window into the Or Ein Sof, and it draws the Or Ein Sof into the neshama. And this is the secret power, secret because it's the source of what's called the Ava Misuteres, the hidden love that exists in every Jew. In many respects, many more of the chapters, a large number of the chapters that are following are really all going to be about knowing what that Or Ava Misuteres is, that hidden love is, and knowing how and learning how to tap it. Because that's the secret. That's the secret to, one can do with total Mesiras Nefesh, and that's wonderful, right? But Chabad is really, it's interesting that Chabad is, often understood as, Chabad is an acronym for the 3 parts of the mind, so some people call it's an intellectual Hasidus. And there is that reality to it. Chabad versus Chagas. right? Where Chagas Chassidus is more focused on the emotions, Chabad more focused on the mind. But the focus that Chabad has on the mind is not primarily about the intellect. The focus on Chabad is really about Chochma as a window into the Or Ein Sof, and drawing the Or Ein Sof into the mind and into the brain and into the conscious thoughts and into the intellect, and then on down into the midos. So yeah, Chabad is not about intellectualization as it is about drawing in that which transcends, surpasses intellectualization. Now we'll go inside the Tanya. But this is the generalization, the whole Sitra de Kedusha. We're going to talk here about what is the side of holiness and how do we draw holiness down here below. Kaddish atzmacha, to make one, we said the expression, kaddish atzmacha b'mutalach. You should make yourself holy even in that which is permitted to you, meaning you should be able to draw down God's kedusha, the Ein Sof itself, into everything that you do. So let's explore the klal gadol, the generality of the side of kedusha. So kedusha, holiness. Kedusha, now Kedusha is, the word Kodesh itself, we've mentioned this before. Kodesh, Rashi defines in Chumash as separate. Kodesh. If something is removed, like the Kodesh Kadoshim, we had the Ezras Nashim in the temple, we had the Kodesh, and then we have the Kodesh Kadoshim. So they're all separate parts from each other. Kodesh refers to the levels of Hashem, which are called makif, transcendent, and borachu is a word which also means to draw down. So the idea is to draw down the transcendent into the immanent, the makif into the panimi. And that's called drawing down Kedusha. Now, the whole side of Kedusha, that capability to draw that side down, is only drawn down through the vehicle, the instrument that we have from that is the power of Chochma, of the neshama, to draw the transcendent into the infinite, to draw the transcendent into the internal, into the panemius, or to Chochma ma'ayin tematzeh, to infuse the ayin, the allness of God, into the details and immanence and presence of God in the soul. And this is called drawing down Kodesh Elyon. And habotel b'metzias b'or ein sof. So the power of Chochma is a particular power which is nullified, given over to, and entirely enveloped in the Or Ein Sof, a malubish boy, which is enclosed within it, within Chochma. Chochma is not something on itself; it becomes a vehicle for union, joining, connecting with the Or Ein Sof. Nikra koyach ma, and that's why Chochma, the letters of Chochma, if you look at them, you have a kof, a ches, and a mem, and a hey. They're just turned around a bit. Is the power of ma, the power to draw down the ineffable, the ma, about which you could say nothing. Ma, what is it? The power of the ineffable to draw it down into panemius. And this is the entire opposite of the klippas in the Sitra Achra. The klippas in the Sitra Achra are all about yesh, standing up. Yesh, there is somebody. This is the primary midah of toihu. Each midah stands up for itself and asserts itself and has little or no ability to relate to somebody else. The tachlis, the ultimate klippa, is the one who stands completely alone and completely self-absorbed, like Paro, who says, I am the river, and the river is me, that I'm in control of everything. Chochma is just the opposite. Chochma is the power of ma. It dissolves. It's the power of bittul. It's the power to expose, to dissolve oneself into a communion with that which is above nature. So that's it's exactly opposite of the klippa in the Sitra Achra. Shemamenu, which from the power of the Sitra Achra is nefoshes umas ha'olam. That's where the power of the Sitra Achra is, where there's the soul power of the nations of the world. The Ovdin L'Gamai, who serve, who are self-serving. The Omrin, and they say, have, L'Hati'eni, they say, give and give, feed me, give me more, I want more. Right? This is the endless acquisition, right, that never satisfies. That's the power, that's the power of the Sitra Achra. Never enough. And the power of Kedusha is just the opposite. Nothing is enough. Because the nothing is above the everything. Nothing, the ineffable. So the power of the Sitra Achra, however, is I want to be a yesh, and I stand alone and separate. Which is opposite of the power of Chochma. Therefore, those who are in the traps of the Sitra Achra are called dead, because we said before, remember we said, Chochma enlivens the one who has it. Chochma is an infusion of the life of lives. And the Klippa is a complete compartmentalization and ultimately squeezing out of that life of light. So therefore, one who lives a life like that is called dead. Ukasiv is written in Eov, Yamusu b'lei b'chochma. About this kind of people, Job says they are dead and they don't have any chochma, because chochma is the source of the infusion of the life of lives, the chaya chaya. V'chein harashoyim, and similarly, the Rashoyim are also called dead. Uposhi Yisrael, evil people and sinners amongst the Jewish people, they're also called dead. Kodim shebor l'dei nesuyin, before they come, and here's a turning point, meaning that this is going to be instrumental in understanding how this power of Chochmah can be awakened. So before a person is in the face of any nesuyin, in any difficulty, so a difficulty, we've spoken about this before, can and does wake you up. This is a huge part of the Maimar Basi Lagani we're talking about, particularly this year, which emphasizes the characteristic of Netzach, that for a king, when a king goes to battle, the king gives it his all. And it's the battle and the opposition which draws the king to have to give it his all. So similarly, any nisyonis which we have, any troubles we have, any afflictions we have, lo yolenu, they shouldn't have them, but we should know that they're there to draw out depths of ourselves which are not normally drawn out. So as he says, so one could be a sinner before shebor l'dei nesoyim, and before he comes to or she comes to the ultimate test of one's Yiddishkeit, which is l'kadosh Hashem, to give over one's life for God's name. The point here being that one who is not observant, and this is historically a matter of fact, Jews who were not observant, when push came to shove, and it was about, are you a Jew or aren't you not a Jew, they gave it their lives for it. And why do they do that? Because of the presence of this Chochma shebenefesh, this ava misuteris, this hidden sleeping love, which is always present. But in a moment of nisoyin, of distress, it wakes up. And then one will, l'kadosh Hashem, will sanctify God's name. Because the power of Chochma, of the godly soul, im nitzus elokus, with its godly spark, ma'or ein so borachu, from the godly spark, which is from the light of the infinite one, blessed be he, hamalubish boy, which is enclosed ba in Chochma, hein bebechinas galus. The reason that a person is feeling dead or deadened to elokus, to godliness, and to service of Hashem, is because this spark is in a state of what's called galus, exile, begufam, in their bodies, benefesh bahamas, is being smothered, never will go out, but it's being smothered by, there's a cloak on top of it, which is preventing it from raising up in flame. The oxygen is being cut off from it, so to speak. And what is that cloak? What is the cover? That's the nefesh bahamas, which is mitzad ha-klippa, the nefesh bahamas, which is from the side of klippa, shebechol hasmoli, as we explained earlier, in the left side of the heart. the left side of the heart. Which is what's conducting and driving the body, if the body is just being driven by its natural, quote, natural animal forces. And that state of being drawn by solely one's animal natural forces is called Galus HaShekhinah, the exile of the Shekhinah. So pretty clear that you can just remove that, take the rag off the fire and let the fire breathe some oxygen. And where's it? Excuse me. And where's the oxygen coming from? It's coming through that little channel in the mind called Chochma. That's where the infusion is coming from. If one can do that, that's called, if the opposite is called Galus, this is called Geula, redemption. Therefore, we call this love. Excuse me. One second. Therefore, okay, we call this love, which is in the godly soul, which the will of the godly soul and the whole desire of the godly soul is to cling to Hashem, who is the Chaya Chayim, the life of lives, Baruch Hu, may he be blessed or may he be drawn down. B'Shem Ava Misuteres. We call this love, which in the state of concealment, being covered over by the Nefesh Bahamis, is called, that's why it's called an Ava Misuteres, a hidden love. It's a love which is always there, but for the time being at least, it's hidden. And as I said, the lion's share of what we're going to be learning as we go forward are aids, advices, and instructions for how to get rid of that covering, which is causing the smoldering and the lack of shining, and how to firm up, how to bring raise up the fire of the godly soul. But for the time being, it's an Ava Misuteres. It's a love which is there, but it's concealed. Kihi Misuteres umechusa. It's hidden and it's covered, right? As I said before, like a blanket put over a smoldering fire. It's covered. Bilavush sak, with a garment of sackcloth. And what is that sackcloth? That's the klippa, the shell, which is concealing it. And that's what's concealing it in B'Paisha Yisrael, in those who are sinners amongst the Jewish people. I mean, so the point here is, it says in Chazal, the only reason a person sins is because of a ruach shtus, is because of a spirit of stupidity or folly. The normative state of a Jewish person is to be in a state of attached to Kedusha. Only by allowing the darkness of the klippas to overcome oneself, or the spark, does one become what's called here a Paisha Yisrael, someone who's a sinner. It's not the nature of a Jew to be a sinner. The nature of a Jew is to be ethical according to Torah and to be engaged in the Torah and mitzvahs. That's the nature of a Jew. However, from these klippas, one can be overcome. And from them enters into a person what's called a ruach shtus, a spirit of stupidity, foolishness, lachtoi, to cause one to sin. As our sages have said, ein adam chochma chayte, a person doesn't sin except when a ruach shtus comes upon him. And that's the end of today's Tanya. So what's causing the sin is a ruach shtus, and all one has to learn is how to blow away that. Ruach is also breath, right? Spirit, breath. Blow away that wind and change the wind direction, so to speak. And how to do it, we'll be learning as we go forward. So that's today's Holy Tanya.
Excuse me, Avi, it's Aviva. I have a comment or
Yes.
a question or something. So when we get to this part of Tanya, it's always conflicted with me, because Tanya clearly is for everybody for all time. But when it gets to the part that it says that, even the Poshe Yisrael, even like people, let's say a guy who's in university at the University of Iowa, and he's Jewish, and somebody comes up to him and says, "Are you a Jew?" If he's got tefillin, he might say yes, probably will. But if he's got a knife, he might say no, or most likely he'll say no. So it seems like some parts of Tanya are really in the context of the world that the Alter Rebbe was living in. Like, I don't know whether so the kid in Iowa would give his life up because he has this dormant, latent love for God.
Okay.
I don't know.
I hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll tell you a short story about me. It wasn't a knife; it was something else. I'll tell you what it was. I'm a kid from Massachusetts, something like Iowa, and there was, there were very few Jewish families there, and my Jewishness was kind of on my sleeve, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, the typical thing, and I was exploring from the time I was about 7 years old, exploring. I felt something was lacking, and various ways, poetry, other things I got into, but I definitely got into studying as many religions as I could get my hands on. And one of the dominant religion was Catholicism in my town. And I hooked up with some people and went to a midnight mass on Xmas night in a Franciscan monastery. And, the incense was just wonderful, and the ceremony was beautiful. And there comes a time in the mass where everyone bows down. They genuflect. They bow down, and there's a beam. There's a little nice cushioned beam to do it. And when that time came, I just couldn't do it. I'm looking around, and I couldn't tell you why, but there was something that held me back. So when push comes to shove, it depends on the incident. Obviously, if in your case, I might say no, I'm not Jewish to save my life, right? But it's certainly historically, and I think Rivka brought this up. There's no atheist in a foxhole, or the famous song that my kids used to sing about the atheist convention in L.A. When the plane goes down, everyone says Shema. So these are examples that are facts in our life today. We don't have to reach back to the pogroms, where we see that the core of Yiddishkeit can come to the fore under the wrong kind of duress. It happens. So the knife experience, I hear you, but atheists in a foxhole and plane diving to destruction, these things can bring out the Shema. Does that help?
Well, interestingly, my sister, who she's older than I am, just told me 2 days ago that when she was a kid, she went to St. Dominic's for a little experience, and she also could not take communion. She's a kid.
There you go.
And I was fascinated also, but I'm just thinking about all the very it answered my question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to.
There's certainly scenarios where it won't happen, but we're very familiar with scenarios where it does happen. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Ubechein? What are we going to take away today? Come on, guys.
Back where I usually am. Every Jew is equally connected to Hashem.
Including you and me and all of us on this call, right? And that's the starting point. And I guess we can end. That's the starting point which we'll end with today. Knowing this, having this knowledge, of who you are. Now it's just a question, okay, I know who I am. Now let me develop it. Let me touch it, feel it, and expand it, and expose it, and learn how to take it out of Gullus and bring it into Geula.
Yeah,
So
and
we'll
resist playing the fool.
resist playing the fool. Good.
Right.
All right. So until we meet again. Yes, Hashem. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.